A sharp diplomatic line is being drawn across the Arctic. Europe is closing ranks after renewed remarks from Donald Trump about Greenland. What began as rhetoric has now triggered a coordinated response from NATO allies, and at stake is not just territory, but sovereignty, alliance unity, and Arctic security. The United Kingdom has issued a blunt warning in the Arctic standoff. After Donald Trump renewed interest in acquiring Greenland, Prime Minister Keir Starmer flatly dismissed any suggestion of U.S. control, reaffirming Denmark as a close ally and declaring that Greenland's future is not up for negotiation. He stressed that the island belongs solely to its people and the Danish kingdom, nothing more, nothing less. Starmer's remarks followed a direct appeal from Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen, who urged Trump to stop making what she called threats against a fellow NATO member. Speaking to Sky News, Starmer said he stood firmly with Frederiksen, calling her position right and unequivocal. Foreign Secretary Yvette Cooper reinforced the stance in Parliament. She told lawmakers the UK would continue close security cooperation with Denmark, stressing that Greenland's future is for Greenlanders and Danes alone, and for no outside power to decide. The issue quickly escalated beyond London and Copenhagen. Leaders of 7 European countries released a joint statement reaffirming Greenland's sovereignty. The message was clear: Greenland belongs to its people, and decisions about its future rest solely with Denmark and Greenland. The statement was signed by leaders from France, Germany, Italy, Poland, Spain, Denmark, and the UK, including Emmanuel Macron, Giorgia Meloni, Donald Tusk, and Pedro Sanchez. Together, they rejected any aggression against NATO territory and warned against destabilizing Arctic security. While the statement avoided naming Washington directly, its intent was unmistakable. European leaders framed Greenland not as a bargaining chip, but as a sovereign region whose status underpins NATO cohesion and stability in the Arctic. The coordinated response highlights growing unease in Europe over unilateral actions by major powers, even allies. With Arctic roots, resources, and military positioning in focus, Greenland has become a symbol of broader strategic tension.
First of all, I believe that we should take the American president seriously when he says that he wants Greenland. But I also want to make it clear that if the USA chooses to attack another NATO country militarily, then everything stops, including our NATO membership, and thus the security that has been established since the end of World War II.
Denmark's Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen has issued her strongest warning yet. She says an American takeover of Greenland would amount to the end of NATO itself. Her remarks come after U.S. President Donald Trump renewed calls for the United States to take control of Greenland, a strategic, mineral-rich Arctic island, a semi-autonomous territory of Denmark, and a formal part of the NATO alliance. In Denmark and Greenland, concern has turned into alarm. Frederiksen says Trump's comments must be taken seriously, and she warns the consequences could be catastrophic. Standing alongside Greenland's leader, Jens Frederik Nielsen, Frederiksen blasted the U.S. president's remarks. They rejected any suggestion of American control and warned that military threats against Greenland would cross a red line. Speaking to Danish broadcaster TV2, Frederiksen delivered a stark message. She said if the United States attacks another NATO country militarily, everything stops. That includes NATO itself and the collective security that has existed since the end of the Second World War. Her words were blunt, and they were unmistakable. Frederiksen said Denmark would never accept a situation where Greenland is threatened or where its people are pressured by military force. She stressed that Greenland's future cannot be dictated from Washington.
First of all, I believe that we should take the American president seriously when he says that he wants Greenland. But I also want to make it clear that if the USA chooses to attack another NATO country militarily, then everything stops, including our NATO membership, and thus the security that has been established since the end of World War II. I'm doing everything I can to prevent that. I believe in democracy, and I believe in the international rules of the game. Of course, I also believe that you don't change borders by force in any way whatsoever. That is not only the position of Denmark and the Danish realm. Fortunately, it is also Europe's position, and that's why I also hope people notice the once again strong European support we are receiving. I agree that it is important to have security, peace, and safety in the Arctic region. That's one of the reasons why we are part of NATO. Greenland is also a member of NATO. It is a shared responsibility for the Arctic states, including the Kingdom, to ensure that there is security, peace, and freedom in the Arctic region. But Denmark has always been a good ally to the United States. We want to continue to be that. But I also have to take issue with some of the things being said by the American side. And of course, we will not accept a situation where we and Greenland are threatened in this way.
Greenland's prime minister has firmly rejected renewed calls by US President Donald Trump for a United States takeover of the island. The response comes after Trump once again raised the idea of American control during the early months of his second term. Speaking on Monday, Prime Minister Jens Frederik Nielsen made it clear. Greenland, he said, cannot be compared to Venezuela. Nielsen stressed that Greenland is a democratic country. He said it has been democratic for many years, and its future cannot be dictated by foreign powers. He acknowledged that recent developments have caused concern and said it was understandable that some people are worried. But he insisted that the current approach is about cooperation, not confrontation. Nielsen said Greenland is working to reinforce its relationship with the United States. He described efforts to re-establish the good cooperation that previously existed between the two sides, calling it a process of rebuilding trust. The Prime Minister was blunt on one point. He said the circumstances are not such that the United States could simply conquer Greenland. Donald Trump, however, has shown no sign of retreat. He repeatedly raised the idea of US jurisdiction over Greenland during his presidential transition and in the early months of his second term. He has also refused to rule out the use of military force, a statement that has sent tremors through NATO. On Sunday, Trump reignited fears, telling reporters to, quote, "Let's talk about Greenland in 20 days," a remark that many in Europe see as a countdown.
And on Greenland,
On Greenland now?
yeah, on Greenland.
How did we come up to Greenland?
So, do you expect to take an action against Greenland?
Well, I don't want to talk about Greenland. Let's talk about Venezuela, Russia, Ukraine. We'll worry about Greenland in about 2 months. Let's talk about Greenland in 20 days.
On Venezuela, we talked so much about energy.
By the way, I will say this about Greenland. We need Greenland from a national security situation. It's so strategic. Right now, Greenland is covered with Russian and Chinese ships all over the place. We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security. And Denmark is not going to be able to do it, I can tell you. You know what Denmark did recently to boost up security in Greenland? They added one more dog sled. It's true. They thought that was a great move.
What would the justification be for a claim to Greenland? What would the justification?
Oh, I don't want to talk about Greenland now. I just say this. We need Greenland from the standpoint of national security. And the European Union needs us to have it, and they know that.